and welcome again. Keep kicking. Today I am joined by another one of my Facebook contacts, somebody that I have not had the fortune to talk to until today. His name is Richard White, and he is based out of Texas. We have had a very lovely conversation. I think what I'm hoping that everyone gets out of this podcast, particular, but also this work as a whole, is it's okay to find people that you don't know and connect on a common ground. If you love music or are a musician, connect with other musicians. If you enjoy literature or writing, connect with other writers, connect with other literature lovers. It's it's all okay. It's okay to meet new people and to connect, and it's okay to meet people that you don't share every common thing with. It will broaden your horizons to talk to people that you don't agree with, and it will do something warm and fuzzy to connect with people that share one of your passions. I hope that you all are inspired by these conversations. I hope that you all are grateful for your martial journey as I am grateful for mine. And I hope that you keep kicking.
Keep kicking, never quitting. Focus sharp like a blade that's hitting. From white belt dreams to the master flow, Paul Coffey's got the mic, now the stories grow. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Old school, new school, all styles blend. From the mat to the mic, where the arts ascend. Philosophy deep, but the vibe stays tight. Martial minds meeting in the podcast light. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Keep Kicking, martial arts conversation. And today I am sitting down with Steak. And I would like you to start by introducing yourself, who you are, styles, anything that you think is pertinent to the conversation. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Happy to be here. Okay, well, my name is Richard White. Everyone calls me Shake because I do spoken word poetry, to temper my intensity, I guess. That's my balance. So I began martial arts in 1984, 40, going on 41 years to the month soon. And those styles range from, I began with Silat, Hungar to Impigana Mantu, now Tobutori no Kurai Jiu-Jitsu, Goshin Kempo. I boxed at Newark Dukas Athletic Club for 3.5, 4 years competitively. So I've been around. I'm a member of World Warrior Alliance, so we do a lot of cross training, with other styles, and I'm just a lover of the craft and the science and the philosophy and the lifestyle of a martial artist.
Absolutely wonderful. I'm also taken back because I thought you were about my age roughly, but I was one in 1984. So clearly you're a little older than me. You have aged gracefully, sir.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on that.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel it. I don't look it, but I feel
You do you feel
it.
it? Do you
Yes,
feel it?
I feel a little older.
For me as a martial artist of 30 years, and I am a month away from being 42. I don't always feel it, but there are moments where I'm like, God, you have done too much to this body.
Yes.
There are
Yes.
there are moments where it's like we shouldn't have took the bow staff to the shins for an hour. That was not a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, most of my physical pain is probably due to the military wear and tear.
Okay.
However, my
Okay.
martial arts background actually helped with the healing. It helped with uh powering and pushing through and all the other stuff, but most of the real injuries and stuff like that, surgeries and stuff were due to militaries. There's that.
Enough. Let's talk about how you got into martial art. What got you started?
Well, actually, I didn't have a choice in the matter. This guy my mom was dating, the man I grew up calling dad, stepfather, he and his brother were heavy into the martial arts, and he started dating my mom, and I was small, I guess. Um, so he started training me, at home. Some of it was like for corrective action and things of that nature. That's how he was introducing it to me. I guess I enjoyed it. I'm trying to remember that age. I guess I enjoyed it. I never had a problem with it. And then a few years later, by 1986, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out. Was my favorite cartoon. I wanted to be a ninja.
Yeah.
So I've never strayed from it. It's my first love, short of my mom. You know.
Sure, of course.
Yes.
So when he was teaching you, what style was he teaching you?
Latin Hungar.
Awesome. And then when did you stay with him? Was he a martial arts instructor and you stayed in his school for a while or?
So he was training me at home. His brother, Master Bagley, was a avid practitioner. Was at the time he was training in well, I don't remember where he was training at first, but the first school that I remember him training at was in Hoboken, New Jersey. He was training Goshen Kempo karate under Hector Janelle School of Self Defense. But my uncle had a school, trained with him as well. His brother. And the first dojo that I went into without either of my parents or out relatives, my pops or my uncle, was Bondo kickboxing under Master Soke Pakakan, doesn't like being called master. And that began in 1989, and he is still my teacher today. So
That's awesome. That's
yes,
wonderful. That is wonderful. And so the concept here with this podcast is we're trying to make certain truths have more light on them. Like
yes,
for
sir.
one, I don't think that you have to have a dojo. Ed Parker said that your dojo is wherever you go. We
Yeah,
carry it with us. So lessons out of a garage are just as effective. And I implore anybody, if you want to learn martial arts, but you can't make it into a school, but you know a guy who teaches out of his garage, see what he has to offer.
yeah,
Everybody has something to offer to the discussion, good or
yeah.
bad. Some sort of
Yes,
an
sir.
offer.
A few things on that. Well, one, lifestyle, right? Like if you're living it, you're going to be much better than if you're just doing it. And lifestyle, if we were speaking religion, the church is not supposed to be a building, right? It's where two or more people gather and they're praising the God of their understanding. Same thing with martial arts, right? I don't need to be in a structure to have a dojo. And number two, depending on what I'm training for, if you're training for competition, yeah, you need mats or a ring or a cage if you're training for competition. If you're training for self-defense and survival, you don't need a dojo because the dojo is clean. It's sanitary. There's nothing for you to trip over. There's no debris. There's no rocks. There's no sidewalk stepping down to the street for you to trip and fall. So wherever you can train, it's probably, wherever you're training is your dojo. It is your dojo. It's not that building, that structure. So, and some people don't have, they may have all the knowledge in the world. They may be a great teacher, a great motivator, but they have horrible credit and can't own brick and mortar. I would not go to that person because they don't have, that physical structure. That's asinine.
That's an amazing point, because also, like, there's a fundamental base level. You walk in not knowing anything in martial arts, you're a white belt, and then as you progress, I like to encourage people as they progress to train outside of the comfort zone. We
Yes,
should
sir.
train outside in the heat. We should train outside in the cold.
Yes, sir.
You had a very wonderful point about, in the dojo, there's no curbs to trip over.
Yes, sir.
And the same way with in the dojo, we learn to get hit so that we can feel what that's like. We
Yes,
don't
sir.
freeze up at the hits. It's the same thing. Like, more people should have the concept of, you're going to trip over that curb.
Yes,
So
sir.
you got to make sure that that curb is part of training.
Yes,
We
sir.
used to do dirty jujitsu is what we called it.
Oh yeah.
And people were like, does that mean you're fighting dirty? It's like, no, that means that we go get in a
The
ditch
dirt.
somewhere, and
Yes.
get dirty
Yeah.
while we do jujitsu.
Yes. It's not a flat.
Wonderful.
There's no flat surface.
Right?
Yes.
Well, you got to make your flat surface
Yes.
and make
Yeah.
it work.
One of the
Uh,
things I do with my kids is it really works well the first time. But I don't know, I read it somewhere, some conversation I was having, someone gave me this idea. So in my children's class, sometimes when they're sparring, I throw focus mitts, stuff like that on the floor for them to trip over. And at first they're hopping over them and they're paying, especially the young kids, they're hopping over it. But I'm waiting for you to pick one of them up and bash your uki in the head with it. Because if we're outside, this may be a bottle, it may be a brick, it may be a stick. So it's a weapon as well. But this also is to retrain your mindset because what happens when you're outside fighting. Now you're worried about the sun in your eyes if you're facing the sun. We don't talk about that in the dojo, right? We're not talking about his or her friends jumping in. We're not talking about weapons, things of that nature. So you have to, if you're in a dojo, brick and mortar, well, you got to simulate those things. And I don't think that happens enough. So yeah,
right.
going outside as well.
100%. 100%. I do remember September 11th happened. I was teaching classes out of a dojo, and we were supposed to have classes that day, didn't call them off. And it was a somber day. No one showed up for either of the kids' classes. I'm sitting around the dojo, working out myself, getting some stretching in, that sort of thing. And I remember I sat down in the lobby and was just kind of chilling for a little bit. And two adults came in for my adult class. And they sat down and they were like, we didn't even know if you were going to have class today. And I was like, we always have class unless it's posted otherwise. It's always here. And it's here for moments like this so that we can work through, whatever pain or grief or fear that you may be experiencing from it. And I remember they were like, well, we don't even know what to do. And I was like, well, we're martial artists. And this is an exercise in trying to mitigate challenges that we're unaware of. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all these chairs that are in the lobby and we're going to put them in there in rows as though it was a plane. And we're going to talk about what we would have done differently, because that's all we can do, and from that exercise, we found that, if we start talking about what we would have had on us, the plane at the time, and, one of the things that popped up was a magazine, and the other thing that popped up was CDs, both of which date me. But,
Yeah.
you know, we talked about a magazine's not a magazine. You roll it up and now you got an Eskrima stick. You
Yes.
know, a CD, snap it in half, and now I got two blades. So
Yes.
we just did that sort of thing. I always say go back to if you label something entire, you lose sight of it entirely. So if it's labeled as a CD, it can't be a weapon. If it's labeled as a magazine, it can't be a weapon. But if you don't label it, you can use it in a pen. So
I got this thing here.
that's
I got
right.
this
This thing,
thing.
and it's about to meet the side of your face. What made you join the military, man?
Number 11.
That's what made you join.
Yes.
Awesome. Appreciate your service. Thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Did martial art play a part in your military experience?
Actually, yes, not in combat itself. Okay. However, I want to be a the master fitness instructor. I got qualified, certified, via the military, and that came about because I was able to motivate, my battle buddies and my soldiers to be their best self, when it came down to physicality, the PT test. And I wasn't using the military ways, right? These are the only exercises we can do, right? And you have to
Right.
do this is that the
Right.
next thing. So when it was time to do PT, yeah, we did that stuff, but especially we deployed, my unit deployed 4 times in a matter of 8 years, 12 months out, 12 months back, 15 months out, 12 months back, 12 months out, like back to back to back. The guys would come, I would have my focus mitts, and we worked out in the arts, guys. We were boxing, with the handwork and doing some small circle jujitsu, and it was motivating the guys. It was getting their minds off of things, and everybody was getting into shape. So that really helped. And then also, um, it helped me maintain the young look and my health, and because I
For
don't,
sure.
I didn't drink, didn't smoke, stuff like that. So it also was my vice, things of that nature. It helped me. It did make me feel more confident as well. That hey, if ever there was a close quarter situation and my rifle jammed, though I know to perform sports, I know what I'm supposed to do. If I have to get hands on, I was more
Right.
confident, right? It's one of the things I talked about, and this is well, it doesn't matter. I'm not in the military anymore. I'm retired. Soldiers can't fight. Like yeah, that face. Soldiers can't fight. So to be in a unit that deploys often, a rapidly deployable unit, combat ready, so forth and so on, and they do combatives very rarely. Do they do combatives? Very, very, very rarely. That's not what I expected or anticipated at all. Being a martial artist, I was like, oh, I'm about to learn some stuff, that it was going to be regular. And so you get a lot of soldiers, brand new soldiers get in the army, they go to the clubs when they get their weekends, and then they show up Monday morning in formation, their hands in the cast because they don't even know how to throw a punch. They got a black
Oh yeah.
eye. They can't work because their fingers are broken. Their wrist is sprained, and it's just like police. You talk to police officers. The amount of training that they actually do with any type of martial art is so minute that that's where the excessive force comes in because they can't handle situations. So, and I brought that. I've had a few commanders and first sergeants who they were interested in fixing that problem in our unit. When I say, hey, sir, hey, first sergeant, blah 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 blah, they was like, hey, go ahead, let's make that happen and put it into the program. So that it was a good thing. It did help. I got a few coins and awards and stuff like that as well, and I had also made some bonds with other people who either were martial artists that were in the military or they're combatives in the military and wanted to do other things with it. So,
That's wonderful. Love that. Love that to death. I have always said that it's a terrible disservice, and like it comes to light, in more recent years, to police officers, military. That is the hardest job in all of our society, hands down, because you don't know who you're working against. You don't know what type of situation or how far along the situation is, what you have to de-escalate.
Yes, sir.
You have a target on your back because people just hate and hate and hate. And I think there needs to be a level of compassion from citizens that's extended and says, your job is really hard. It is really stressful. It's mentally taxing. It's physically taxing. And you don't have enough support. I cannot understand why a police officer, his 40 hours, 8 of those hours, 10 of those hours weekly is not spent learning de-escalation techniques and practicing them, learning martial art and nice, succinct ways of de-escalating a physical situation appropriately. I think they need that type of support. And same thing for military. Like I could not even begin to understand the depth or breadth of the situations that you have been in because of being deployed, being back, being deployed, being back. And you had the technique and the ability to de-escalate those situations, but every person that you were with did not,
Right. Yeah.
because they're not supported.
Right.
It's okay.
Somebody's calling the shots doesn't know better. It's I was
Right.
just talking like in the school systems, teachers are being attacked more often, right? And teachers to be a school teacher, you have certain rules, you got certain limitations, what you can do, touching the student, then you may lose your job, all those type of things. But learning how to protect yourself and defend yourself so that you don't get hurt and be able to do that and be able to subdue, you know, someone if you have to, so that they can't hurt themselves or hurt you anymore or whatever without like these are things like you said with the police spending 10 hours a week, 8, 10 hours a week doing that. So there's no difference in that, in my opinion, and my not just my opinion and my experience, going to a self-defense seminar. You go to a seminar and then you never take classes. You don't,
Right.
right? One of the things, Soke Hassan Khalik out of in Brooklyn, he had a podcast and I said it on his podcast, we had a discussion about it. I tell everybody that nothing I teach you works. It doesn't work. And he was like, you shouldn't tell him that. I was like, no, no. He allowed me to explain. So I'm in Texas, open carry, whatever. I am licensed to carry, but I'm always armed. Not just my firearm. I'm always armed. My pistol doesn't work. It's never done anything to anybody. My blades don't work. The ink pen that I carry, it it doesn't work. I have to make it work. Like my
Right.
techniques, like these hands, right? Like my feet. I have to make it work. If I'm not actively practicing and becoming proficient, it's not doing anything. And when you go to a seminar, you're not learning anything. You're being introduced and enlightened, right?
Right.
You have to practice to the extent, especially when we're talking about, like in self-defense and defense of yourself, you're not learning anything. I'm not teaching you anything. I am retraining you. What happens is we are taking your natural response and making it something different. We're training your fight or flight response to be different. That's going to take some repetition, right? If somebody balls up their fist and they swing their arm back and you close your eyes and you put your hands up and you turn your head to the side because that's what you do naturally out of fear, well, with training and training and training, now you're stepping off the center line. You might be getting out of the way. You may be blocking, whatever your style is. You may be closing the distance so that you're too close for them to hit you good. You may be going for an ankle pick, whatever, but that's not something that you feel like, this is what I'm going to do. I did this in that class 7 months ago, right? But that's what happens for the police. But that's what
That one
happens.
class 7 months
That one
ago.
class, right? You go and you do that, and it seems like that's what they're doing, like with the police officers. You pass whatever tests and qualifications, and how often do you
Right.
requalify? You know, like
Well,
there are police
you're
officers
just
not doing anything.
thrown to the wolves.
Yes, yeah,
Like, and you mentioned teachers. That's probably number one hardest job in our current society is definitely, in my opinion, police officers, military, those that protect, those that serve,
yes.
both their community or the nation. Number
School
two
teachers
has
and so
got to
forth.
be
Yeah, Yeah.
Teachers.
Oh yes, yes, very much so.
And the war zone that schools has become. I feel bad for the teachers. I feel bad for those babies that are running through there and having to deal with that.
Yes, sir.
It is heartbreaking on both levels. So tell me about the time after the military, or did you do like 20 years?
No, I was close to getting my time in. I got medically retired. I got injured pretty bad and had to have got bolts and screws and titanium in my spine and stuff like that. So
$6 million man.
I wish it was worth that much. It's almost what the bill was if I wasn't in the military. No, but I was injured pretty bad. Had a lot of physical therapy and stuff like that. Made things difficult, but again, to attribute to everything that I learned in the martial arts, it gave me that drive and that push, the perseverance to get back into being able to run and jump a little bit, and it did also changed the way I wanted to train. Well, it changed the way I had to train, right? I can't do the hang and bang styles anymore, right?
Hmm.
Not for training. Like if I need to get somebody off of me, yeah, I mean, okay, I'm going to give it what I got if it requires me to go bang 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 bang. I love the boxing. I love it. I did. But as you get older, closer to 50, and dealing with, chronic pain and limitations and stuff like that, there becomes more small circle jujitsu, more Aikido style, Tai Chi styles, more of the soft styles, more judo, that type of stuff, where, you're not doing more as much of the kicking and punching as much because, you have these limitations and stuff. But that also helped widen your martial knowledge because you know we get comfortable with something and that's our pocket this and we swear by it. That's why
Comfort,
there's so
comfort,
much
comfort.
division, right? uh, I talk about that all the time, like with a lot of martial artists and students and people that don't know anything. You have the people that swear by the UFC. They think MMA is real fighting, and I'm like, no, it's not real fighting. It's sport, like boxing is a sport, like, judo is a sport. Like these things have their place in combat, but there's rules, right? I can, and none of
And
those can
not
I,
eye gouge.
right? I cannot put my thumb in your eye the way I'm going to, I can't intentionally, um, I actually have a student that I was speaking with about, wrist locks and finger locks and things of that nature. Somebody's always putting their hand on you, all right? I don't recall. You don't really see that in competition. Well, one, they got those big gloves on, right?
Yeah.
But the easiest way to break it down is when you're training. If you're trained, it should give you an advantage in self defense. You're in shape. You're used to pain. You're used to seeing hands and feet come at you or body. So you have some practice. And conditioning is very important. You also develop that mental toughness, right? However, there's disadvantages. If you box and I rush you and try to grab you and drag you to the ground, you don't really know how to respond because every day you spend in that boxing gym, you're training to fight another boxer. If you're a Shotokan practitioner, every day you're training to defend against Shotokan being used, and so forth and so on.
Absolutely.
Not really somebody coming at you just trying to melee you, right? You're not training for that, except when you're a white belt the first time you spar. You don't know anything, and
Right, right,
I learned how to tie my OB. I learned 2 or 3 blocks and 4 stances, and it's time to spar, right? So that might be
right.
the most realistic you get, right? And then you have people that they have they've been a black belt 4 or 5 years. They got 500 trophies, but they're a point fighter, and you can't take that out on the street because you hit me one time and I'm rushing you. You don't get that pause, so there's those type of things. So that cross training, and not just cross training by like a seminar or 1 day, 2 day, actually enlightening your strongest muscle, your most important muscle, it teaches you a lot. You learn a lot and you become more well-rounded, because it's not about the physical stuff. It's not at all, So, and I try to express that and have that conversation with people. Look, I don't want you to, I'm not trying to sell you a dream, tell you, oh, my style, my system is the end all be all, right? But it's a good compliment to whatever it is you got in your tool bag, right? That hammer is not going to fix everything at all.
Sense. I like that analogy. And that kind of also, we talk a lot about why. Why do we as martial artists do it? And some of the times the answer is just it's so captivating. There's something about me that is immediately drawn to like understanding all these different martial arts and understanding the difference between judo and tempo and the difference, like
Yes, sir.
the conceptual idea of just having a thirst for knowledge. And I also preach that it is incredibly important. My tenure as a martial artist and as a martial arts instructor is because I am a student first and a student always.
Yes, sir.
Always having to learn, always having to like, what can I get from this? What can I get from that? What do you think has sparked your why as far as maintaining your time as a martial artist?
The fact that I
What's
don't
kept
know anything.
you in it?
The fact that I don't know anything, right?
Love it.
Um,
Right.
it's when I'm talking to the kids,
Socrates
yeah,
Socrates said, "I'm the smartest man alive." So I realized I know nothing.
yes, it is literally like being the sun, right? And you got this universe and these planets that revolve around you. You're not the biggest star. You're just here. And then there's so much more in the cosmos we don't even know anything about, right? And that's how I feel. Like I mentioned earlier, being a member of the World Warrior Alliance. The first time I went to this seminar, there's maybe 150, 200 people there, all different martial artists, so forth and so on. There's historians. There's people that I'm fans of, people that I read about, all this other stuff. Everybody. I mean, there's things that I knew. There's things I didn't know. There's different ways of doing the same thing, some better things that I wouldn't do, right? And it's like you don't know all these things. You don't know. And to call yourself, there are people who like to call themselves master, and there's not a single technique that they have mastered. And I say call themselves, not we call them master, call themselves master, right?
Right.
And to know that there's so much that I do not know, to be able to be wowed and impressed and taught every day even by my students. I have students that make mistakes, and in classes, there's no the mistake is you freezing up and standing there getting punched in the face. That's the mistake, right? But whatever
Right.
technique, if we're
Right.
doing a technique, whatever the principle is behind this technique, whatever have you, we're doing a technique, and it doesn't come out that way. It branches off a whole new lesson because
Right.
if I put you in this situation, everybody's not going to attack the same, right? Everybody's not going to attack the same. It was forever, the last August I was at the seminar and I had to teach the black belt class. Well, I have peers, I have superiors in this class, of course. So first, me, the type of person I am, I ask for permission to, even though it's my class, it's like when I'm around elders, I ask for permission to speak. Okay. And I express that I'm not demeaning anybody's style, system, way of teaching, or any other stuff. And I go into my technique, and my principle. And then I gave a challenge to the teachers. We sat down, we took a knee, everybody took a knee, sat down, and we had a discussion. I said, when you leave here, we see a lot of forward stance, Zenkusudachi, reverse punch, and the technique is, Teso block, fan block, it looks great. But if you ever have a kid in your class get beat up at school and their parents come in upset because they've been paying all this money, all this time, da 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 da, whatever, it's because when they were in the playground, there was no forward stance and reverse
Right.
punch. It was a
Right.
haymaker, right? So, and
Right.
and all I was explaining was like, we have these techniques, and this is what I offer. We have all these techniques. and we practice. And a lot of people, we try to remain traditional because you may feel that it's disrespectful to veer off from that. But somewhere along the line, we got lazy and we're just going to do the textbook stuff and not actually teaching the application. So, of all the knowledge that I have, everything that I've been taught, so forth and so on, I only know how to use it the way it was taught to me, right?
Right.
It's no different than giving commands to a class of, to a room full of martial artists, and some of them are in Korean styles. They don't speak Japanese, right? Some of them are Chinese styles. Some of them are African martial arts or whatever, right? Same with the titles. You don't know everybody's title, and these are the easy things to see. You know, these are the things that they're small to see that you don't know everything. You don't know everything. So if you're actually passionate about this and you love it so much, you have no choice but to be a student because you don't know anything. You don't know anything.
Absolutely.
Most of,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say most of us, but most of the martial artists that I have come in contact with in my lifetime cannot tell you their teacher's name.
Okay.
That far on lineage, right? So it's like
Right.
you really
That
don't know
far.
much.
But
Right.
yes.
Exactly. You know, and then you find I was a like I said, I was a student of Bondo. And my teacher, Paka Khan, Paka, I grew up, like I started training with him in 89, 89, 90, 91, you know. And as I got older, I was like, man, nobody's going to believe me. First of all, because at the time, outside of the martial art world, everybody knew the words taekwondo, karate, kung fu. That's what everybody else knew.
Yeah. And they represented different nationalities and
Yes,
not,
China,
well,
Japan, Korea. That was
like,
it.
oh, he's Chinese, it's kung fu.
Yes, yes, right. And jujitsu, the only thing anybody did, oh, that's the ones they be wearing that blue uniform, the blue ones, the
Yes.
blue ones,
Yes.
right? That was all people knew, right? So I was like, well, nobody knows my style, right? And I did get to meet, I met Dr. Mao G, in '92 at a tournament. You know, I
We're
won the gold
getting
medal.
closer. We're getting closer to me actually starting martial arts, 92.
Stop poking fun at my age.
Ah,
But
no, I'm
we,
I'm taking back. I'm taking back.
yeah,
You're
so we
aging well,
go
brother.
from there. And then from there, his name, my teacher's name, being Pakatan Khan, Khan. I was like, nobody would believe me. This also
Right.
that's a Hollywood movie name, you know.
Right.
And his title at the time was Mwalimu, you know, which I thought it was his, part of his. I was a kid. I thought it was his first name. I was like, yeah, nobody's gonna believe me. And my other teachers, my other notable teachers, was going around saying, oh, my dad teaches me, my uncle teaches me, and then I have another teacher. This is all prior to me boxing. I took a little break from kicking or whatever and started boxing, which actually I got involved with by being challenged. But those things, it was like I knew what I knew. And then later on in life,
Right. Right.
decades later, I find out that Dr. Moses Powell, father of Sanukis Ryu Jiu Jitsu, was a
Hmm.
student of Bondo, and that Bondo is widely known by martial artists, in the martial art community that now as an adult I can be a part of versus, okay, I have access, I didn't have access other than, my teachers, the dojo I was in, and people that came around to train with my uncle or something to that effect. So learning your lineage, your heritage, who your family is, the philosophy, the where it comes from. The derivative. Like everybody doesn't know what is it? Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, right?
Right.
Cobra Kai is they're Korean, so that should be Tang Sudo or Taekwondo, right? It's not
Right. Right.
right, but Hollywood. Everybody what they know is Hollywood. So it's like these things are enough signs that you don't know enough. You don't know anything. This is not even about the
Absolutely.
training. You can't even have you can't really have the conversation with somebody who really knows this because you don't speak the same language, and that should be the first barrier. That's the first barrier right there. And then, like I said, when it comes to the training, it's the reason people think, oh, this doesn't work. Well, what is your level of understanding and application, and not your level of training, because or not your rank. You could be a Nidan. You can be a Rokudan and whatever system. But if you were training for tournaments, you got a lot of trophies and medals,
Right.
and that
Well,
may
you know,
not
and
translate.
I think also there is a bit of like objectivity versus subjectivity to martial art. And
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of people, especially online for some reason. I don't know why they're all online, but that are practitioners of a style and feel the need to tell other styles that they're wrong. Like that's not right because it's not the way that I've studied it. And I think that those people are not aware of a couple of things. One, I'm 6'5". So I personally am gonna do shit a lot different from somebody that's 5'5".
Yes, sir.
We are different people of different statures, or I have not had any injuries, so I'm going to fundamentally fight different than you who have
Yes, sir.
had injuries.
Yes,
Not,
sir.
and it's not, this is not a tit for tat, somebody's better than somebody. This is just there are fundamental things about being a human. I
Yes.
have my own story, my own experiences, my own perception of reality that is also going to dictate how I teach. It's going to dictate how I execute. And a lot of people aren't considering those things as well. And then I think the other thing that is very important about what you're saying, that I like to take important things that people say and drive them home, is that there is no way that you or anybody else could walk into one dojo and study and get everything you need from that one spot.
Right. Absolutely.
You got to find multiple masters and study from multiple masters and learn multiple things. And it's great. Like you had a very wonderful base when you started. And I was very fortunate in the school that I started in. After you attained black belt, before you could get second degree, before you could get to that level, you had to be at least close to black belt in another style. So the school that I was a part of wanted you to go out of the dojo and find something else
Yes.
before, like, didn't want you to leave. You still
Yes.
stay, still train. Now you're in black belt workouts. You can show us whatever you're picking up and we
Yes,
can
sir.
integrate it and, show counter for counter.
Yes.
And I think that it's very important. I think it's very important that we foster that sort of relationship. That's
Yes, sir.
vastly important. So, when'd you get to Texas? You always been in Texas?
No, I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in New Jersey. Um,
Okay.
when 9/11 happened, I was in college. I was at Montclair State University. My then girlfriend's roommate called the phone because her boyfriend was my roommate. It was like, "Hey, a plane hit one of the twin towers. Everybody's crying. Look out the window." As we get into the window, the second plane was hitting. So, around December, I started talking, once oh yeah, it was terrorist thing, blah, 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 whatever. Started talking to a recruiter and went to basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And then
I'm out of Kentucky.
my first duty station was Fort Hood, now Fort Cavazos in Texas. And I got stuck in Texas for 10 years in that unit, first Cav division. They didn't let me go. They were just back and forth to Iraq. And then, after 10 years of being in Fort Hood, I went to Fort Benning, blah, 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 do my moving around after that. But after I was medically retired, Texas, being one of the top 3 states in the country for veterans, brought me back. That was one of the contributing factors to me making my decision to come back to Texas. That and I had 2 daughters, and I didn't want to raise them in Norton. So,
Brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant. Do you teach your daughters?
My oldest daughter is in Florida learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Beautiful.
And my youngest daughter, we didn't do much training because Dad, I can fight, I can fight, I can fight. That wasn't her thing. But, she wanted to play ball and run track and things of that nature. But she knows she knows enough to get somebody off of her, not as much as I would like, because who doesn't want to train their kids, but
Right. 100%.
that thing, yeah, it's that thing. Somebody else can teach me, not you, Dad.
Right.
Yeah.
How how did martial arts impact you being a father?
Who discipline, right? It helped me. What I learned from martial arts played a big role in my demeanor, my character. When it came down to handling things, I wanted sons so I could punch them in the chest. When they stepped out of line, I had girls. So there
Right.
was that.
Right.
And it helped. It did, especially with my youngest when she was going into high school. Anyway, when she was going into high school, I knew that I had spent so much time with her when she was younger, preparing her in case she had to defend herself, you know, which I feel like a lot of
Totally.
parents drop the ball on that one, drop the ball on that one, before you start with the dating, and then you got some girls are jealous and want to put hands on you because I can't drive to the school and beat up high school girls with you, or you're dating a boy and he's handsy, or just any of those things, so as a girl dad, being feeling much more it helped me be confident in her safety and things of that nature.
For sure.
Definitely did that. Like I said,
Yeah, I
she
couldn't
didn't train
imagine
as
being
much
a
as I
girl
wanted her to.
dad.
But
If I was
listen,
a if I was a girl dad,
yeah, yeah,
you gotta be fifth degree black belt before you can date, girl.
listen,
I'm sorry.
listen, and then it became, especially now that she's an adult. My youngest is 21. Um, Now it's when I meet, or when I even when the last her ex and the guy she's with now, I was like, hey, come let me talk to you, because my daughter's beautiful. She looks like her dad, so she's beautiful. She's gorgeous. Um,
Wonderful.
it was seeing if they can fight. Like, not do you fight because you got my child around. You don't need to be doing that. All right, for her safety, but working on having more of a martial mindset, how we carry ourselves, because we have a better understanding of the outcome and the consequences and things of that nature, not just that whole tough
Absolutely.
guy attitude, and also enlightening them on how to do things and how to handle things and stuff like that, because you're out, you're this gorgeous woman and somebody tries you. I don't need your ego and attitude. You got to have this martial mindset. I don't need your ego and attitude to have you stepping
Absolutely.
out, which puts my daughter in a dangerous situation, because now you know stuff is popping off. So that's honestly, it's been the scariest thing though, is just that you're just a street punk. Not no disrespect, but you're,
Right.
you're just a street punk.
Right.
You got that. Oh, ain't nobody
Right.
going. And we're in Central Texas. We're not in. I'm in Central Texas. I'm in the center of Texas. This is not a hood. It was Fort Hood, but it's not a hood. It's not.
Right.
But everybody's trying to prove themselves, and you're 19 to 25. That age, they're still immature, and
Not even fully
they don't
formed
have
yet.
that right. And on top of all of that, being in Texas, where I can walk down the street with a katana on my back, you really need to be able to defend yourself, because these guys who can't, everybody's packing a gun, whether legally or not. And so those are the type of things that have plagued me. So I make sure that having that mindset, even martial is another word for military. Even my military training and stuff like that has, it all plays a role in how I talk to and raise my children, and just to prepare them for the world that they're in, not the world that we want to leave them. So it's been a
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Ego will escalate instead of de-escalating the situation.
And and that's like, people that train for real, and it wasn't a cocky statement, but I said something before a long time ago, when I was in the military, when I was in the army. um a lot of the guys that hung out with me would come around and train, and we would talk, because I'm not 6'5", I'm 5'8", okay. uh but a lot of the guys that I move around with are a lot bigger, and it would be mind blowing, but I was like, it's because of what I'm doing. I'm doing things that require you be bigger than me. It works better
Right,
that way.
right. 100%. Yeah.
Right. It's just like if you when we talk like the street fighting, for example, like when I was speaking on the martial arts and nothing against Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but that's the newaza of jiu-jitsu. It's ground fighting of Japanese traditional jiu-jitsu. To
Right.
me, it is great to learn, great to have in the toolbox. It is horrible to think that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is going to be your end all be all for self-defense because the way the fights happen. Like you're on the ground, you don't know if I got a weapon on me, you're hugging me, I'm stabbing you, my friends are kicking you in the head and stomping you, things of that nature, right? Um,
I've seen a dozen videos where a guy takes a guy to the ground and the other guy pulls out a knife and it's over.
right, right. And one thing that they don't do enough of training is um uh, uh someone under 150 pounds, right? Let's say a woman who's 115, 120 pounds, she's being attacked by a man who's 6'5", 240 pounds, and she goes to pull guard, you know, and
Right, right.
he's attempting a sexual assault, you know what I mean? Like, so, however, if you're using judo, I don't find too many people who have not trained know how to bounce off the sidewalk. That's so, it's again what you were saying about training with other styles. There's reason for them. There's reason for that. So, all things considered, there's the stigma and the thought process that we have when we're training and for what we're training for is something that I feel like most people get lost on. Like I said, I'm 5'8". What I'm doing and what I'm doing works for me, works for my body. To train somebody else, good teachers can't be on that. This is my style, my system, like you just said. Everybody
Mhm.
is swearing by the way they learned it, the way they do it. Well, it works for you. It works for you. If you were at 6'5", if you were a Taekwondo practitioner, your legs are probably the length of me, right? Oh,
Yeah.
you know, if you were, even if you were boxing, how much, if I was a karate practitioner and you were a boxer, you would beat the brakes off of me. Why? Because especially if I'm traditional, I'm very linear and I
Well,
have very poor head movement because head movement is not a staple in karate. It's mostly, foot movement and blocks. And
right.
I have 80 inches of jab that I got to try to get away from while not
Right.
running into overhand rights, hooks, and uppercuts with, this great footwork that you probably have, right? So again, what we don't know and that standing on what little you do know, but again, that takes it back to religion. Christianity is the right way. Judaism is the right way. Islam is the right way. Like some of these things you guys all say the same. Some of these things you got different, all these denominations and all of these. So like how to hold the knife. Also depends on what you're cutting. A butcher holds a knife differently, you know,
That's wonderful. That is
you know.
wonderful. But yeah, martial art, fundamentally, we could use the same technique, even
Yes,
though stature is different or, but it's not what we're using. It would be how we use it.
how we use it. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I love that.
I know you've been in the martial arts long enough to know some of the jokes against martial arts about karate guys. Woman goes to a self-defense class and she goes home, baby, let me show you what I learned. Grab my arm. No, you can't grab it that
Right.
way. You got to grab it like this, right? So it's like, and again with the cross training, if I learn something my way in my school under my system, and I only know it this way, that doesn't help me. I do need to know it different ways, right? Because one,
Right.
somebody with no training is going to attack me in a very unorthodox manner. I need to be able to execute my techniques against these unorthodox unknowns. I need to be able to execute my Kempo techniques against a Shotokan practitioner, against a judoka, against a boxer, against a Taekwondo practitioner. I need to be able to do the techniques that I know against whatever it is that you're going to do, right? Now, if I got 5, 6 guys and we're training together, I would like those 5 or 6 guys all even if we're doing the same technique, to attack me differently. I need some, even if it break it down to simplify it, boxing. The reason that southpaws have such an advantage is because most people are right-handed, not left-handed, and when we're training, we're spending most of our training one way. So now somebody is doing something different, and that should be something that's literally part of your training. It's nobody said that you're doing it right. And I like to, because religion is something that people stand on just as firmly, if not more. Well, you have never died and went to what's next to come back and say, hey, you know what? We're not supposed to be Christian. We're actually supposed to be Buddhist. So let me tell my kids, I've been leading you astray, right? That hasn't happened yet. So you don't know. You just assume, you feel, and you believe. That's, to me, for me, that's not enough. Not when, excuse me, like, not when my ass is on the line, not when my life is
Right.
depending upon it,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Yes, that these 50-year-old, 5'8", 143-pound technique that worked for me not going to work for you. You probably, I'm probably faster than you are. You're definitely going
I
to
would imagine.
naturally apply more force than I can. You have more mass, right? Women tend to naturally have stronger legs. The lower half of their body is stronger naturally than the upper half. The upper half. We're usually stronger in the torso and the arms and stuff like that. Those things play a role in it. So when it comes down to what you're training, how you're training, who's training you, your method, it may work for you because you've made it work, and it may not work for you because you are in the wrong system or have the wrong teacher or the wrong person teaching you. There's people who feel as though you got to be in some type of, you have to be like excellent physical prowess to be a teacher, right? Or I don't want to learn, and yeah, it shows that you're training and you care about your health and things of that nature. However, it may not have nothing to do with your technique,
Right.
right?
Right.
I have a friend, a dojo brother, who's over 400 pounds plus. He's really good at joint locks, you know, and I don't never question him about it. I don't know if he had a thyroid problem, if it's genetics. I never asked. It didn't matter to me. But he exudes, integrity and honor and stuff like that. His joint locking is good, and I said, I'd have loved to have somebody like you in the dojo when I was coming up, because body shots, like, it's like having a beer belly. You punch somebody in the stomach and they have a beer gut, it does nothing. It doesn't hurt them,
Right.
right? So you have that cushion, and he's short and round. So I can't really get good headshots. Like, how do you move this type of mass, right? Where you could
And
run me over.
if he's shorter than you and bigger than you can't get under him.
Exactly.
Like that's
And
the
you
other
don't
thing,
want to
which
get
is
under 400 pounds,
right, right,
right? You
right,
don't want to pull guard on a 400-pound. You can't get your
right,
arms around, right? So this is somebody that that probably would get laughed at and shunned from a dojo, so forth and so on. And this is one of the perfect people to train with, right? Perfect person to train with. I can't wrestle. I can't out wrestle you. I can't out grapple you. And you have skill. And you have skills, right? And my punching and kicking. So now what do I have to do? I have to think. I have to move. I have to move. And one thing that we don't do enough of is move. We don't move, and those type of things, the things that we don't do, it's like I have the kids spar with one glove on, right? Where they can't use the other hand or that one glove, because especially when they're kids, like you said, you're learning to get hit and take it, absorb it.
right. Yeah,
But you should be learning how not to get hit, right? Because if I hit you one time, like, my martial arts doesn't matter if I take a nap when you hit me.
right,
If you sucker
right,
punch me and all of a sudden I'm narcoleptic or I'm unconscious, it didn't help me at all. So I have the
right,
kids, I'm giving away secrets now, but they put a glove on, and they have a boxing glove on one hand, and they'll have a regular MMA glove, or the karate gloves, and they're sparring. And the thing is, you lose if they hit you with that other hand. The other hand is like brass knuckles, or it's inflamed, depending on the age of those kids. So the children actually start working on their defense instead of getting in there and just punching and kicking each other, because that's what they do. They just going in there, they're having a good time, you know. But imagine not allowing somebody to touch you, because until you start, I don't put weapons in kids' hands. I don't put knives in kids' hands. Bow staff, the chance of them fighting with a bow staff is like somebody breaking into your house and you grab the broom, right?
Right.
But if somebody pulls a knife on you or is trying to hit you with a bottle, hit you in the head with something, you have no practice. You have no, you don't have any, you don't have no minutes, no hours of that training going on as a child, and maybe even as an adult, you probably only, depending on how much you do it in your dojo, in your school with your training, someone coming at you. But making it so that somebody cannot touch you with that hand, right? Because now I got to move, I got to slip, bob, weave. I have to use my footwork. My tasabaki got to be well. I have to get in and trap your arm. Like I'm practicing this at combat speed, not drilling, practicing this sparring. And it's something that, it's missing. So there are ways to get these elements in. And sometimes it's just going to take different body types. You get in there, every time you go to get a uki, you go into your best friend or you're getting somebody close to your size, right?
Right.
I would love to work with somebody 6'5" all the time. However, if I get good at fighting somebody with the longer reach and you're good at fighting somebody, you get good at, your back
Right.
is hurting from bending
Right.
down. Well, what happens when somebody my size, now I don't know what to do with them because I can't gauge my distance now. My combative distance has changed. So, that variety is something we need in all aspects, not just our style, our training partners. You need them overweight, underweight, tall, short, different styles, different habits. You need all of that, and I feel like
Sure.
that
For
will make
sure.
that makes you more complete. It makes you more complete.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think, in your opinion, is one thing that people neglect in their training? What do you think's most neglected?
The most neglected thing in training, most people, philosophy, the philosophy. And I say that because I feel as though we spend too much, the philosophy and principle, I say that, too much of our focus is on the technique.
For
So much of
sure.
our focus is on the technique itself. If you're trying to execute a technique, and even in training, I can stop you from getting the technique off because I know what you're doing. Because we're in class together. We know what we're doing. So I can stop it every time if I wanted to. In reality, whatever you're going to do to me in the street, if I attack you or we're fighting, if it's self defense or a fight, I have no idea what you're going to do. All I know is you're going to try to hurt me. That's it.
Right.
If I don't know that you have training, I expect you to lean back, to throw 2 or 3 haymakers, close the distance, grab me, and throw me on the ground. That's what I expect you to do. Why? Because you don't want to get hit. So with training a specific technique, and I'm going to get this technique, and it has to be done this way, it takes away from the imagination. It takes away the birth of new techniques. I'm going to figure something out when there's a mistake made, when your body's in a different place, when something happens differently. I'm going to figure that out. If I'm going for a wrist lock and my hand is slipping because we were outside at the basketball court and and we're sweaty and you get upset, you start putting your hands on me, and I don't want to go into one of these. I'm not trying to get in trouble. I want to fight and I'm trying to subdue you, and my hand is slipping and I'm focused on getting this wrist lock or this arm lock, and I'm sliding off of you and I don't know what to do because I'm going to keep trying and trying to do that. Instead, I slide and okay, well, I got a thumb lock. It's a habit because I have practiced that. When I make that mistake, well, what's there for me? I got this finger lock, right? Those are things that don't happen enough. And it's not the system or the style. It is literally, in my opinion, it is 110% the teaching, the method in which we teach. We have a curriculum and we try to stick to this curriculum. When you look at our school system, it's the same way. You're not being allowed to use your imagination. So then we don't have geniuses anymore. And when I say we don't have geniuses, is our cell phones are getting smaller and doing more. And people think that's genius. Well, what's genius is somebody was like, man, I want to have a conversation with somebody who isn't here. I'm going to make something and call it the telephone and then make something out of nothing. That was genius. That's our martial arts, right? Combat was created. These styles and systems were created, and the evolution is important. We need our imagination for that. So we
Absolutely.
we can't be so textbook, right? That the imagination and innovation has no place for it. So I feel like that, okay, well, we have to do this technique, that technique. These are the techniques you have to know. These are the katas you have to know. And that's the most important thing for a lot of people in training instead of understanding the principles, right? In a real fight, like
Absolutely.
when we teach principles, if you and I are fighting, you should be off balance the whole time. Not I'm trying to do these sweeps or this and the next thing. I should be trying to keep you off balance. I should be trying to make it so that you can't see or that you're damage your hands, your hands, your arms, right? Because if you can't grab me, if you can't hit me, right, attack the closest part of your body that's to me instead of reaching. Especially you being 6'5", you throwing punches and kicks. I probably should hit you in your radial nerve or try to damage your hands, not trying to get close enough to hit you in the face,
Sure.
right? Those principles, if I understand these principles and I employ these principles, whatever techniques that follow won't matter, and I can't mess that up, right? So
100%. Love that.
yeah, I feel like they just get too physical, and a lot of that is due to sport fighting, you know, jujitsu, boxing. It's the sport aspect of it because a lot of like the first thing you said was about eye gouge. Well, if you can't see me, right,
Right.
and your body's if I hit you I also can't hit you in the throat in sports, right? But an impact choke to your esophagus, your trachea, your hands automatically do the natural choking side. And when your
Yep.
hands are on you, they're not on me. If I hit you in the eye, that's a natural reaction. That second that your
Yes.
hands go back, but I can't do that in sports. That's a principle that we're taking away,
Right.
for technique. So yeah, that would be my answer to that. Definitely taking away the principles
Beautiful
and the
answer.
philosophy. Yes, sir.
Beautiful answer. What's next for you if there are no limits? Who would you study with? What would you study? What would be the next thing that you would pick up and add to the toolbox?
Oh, well, right now I'm actually studying jujitsu under Baba Blackhawk, Tobotori no Kurai Jujitsu,
Okay.
and I've been training with him for almost a year now. And
Very
man,
awesome.
you know,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you, thank you. If I could, it's like I said, I'm a member of this organization, WWA, got all these, so and we
Mhm.
doing all these classes and cross training, so that's been awesome. And I actually have opportunity to I'm training with Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad, Soke Lil John Davis, Infodiji Tairi Kasal, C. Joe Thomas Gatlin. Like I'm training with a lot of people, so
Mhm. I
I
love
actually
it.
had that access. So wow, that's a question that's next for me would be, man, oh, wow. I don't know. Probably with you being 6'5", I'll probably come in and see what more around with you a little bit, because I'm taller than my jujitsu teacher. I'm taller than Baba Blackhawk, so he's
I'm
like,
taller than most that are
yeah, yes, yes,
around.
But
Yeah.
yeah, there's Professor Zaharia, Raw Life Defense. She's a Sanukas practitioner. I don't know if she has a judo background as well, but I love the way that she slams people at the end of all of her techniques. It's very vicious looking. I watch a professor show. It's Elmore Aki Jiu Jitsu. He's in New York, but he's kind of tall as well. I watch, I see him online. I like a lot of this stuff that he does. So I mean, there's some people who I haven't had the opportunity, like I talked to them or follow them on social media that I haven't had opportunity to share mat with, that interests me. But right now, I'm an open book. I don't care who it is. I don't care who it
Love it.
is. I love it. Like you said, everybody has something different. And the thing about something different, even if they're nowhere near your level, is it's I'm a chess player. I play chess. And
That's absolutely what it is.
but what you find out as you get better and better and better at chess, a lot of chess greats won't play novices because it affects your game, right? It
Mhm.
knocks your level of play down. However, a lot of these chess grandmasters, they do unorthodox amateur things that throw you off so that they can capitalize on it. Is that not what we do,
100%.
in combat, right?
100%.
I'm not going to let you know that, yeah, okay, well, this guy's a Rokudan in this style. Like, he has more than one black belt. I'm not about to show you anything. I know absolutely nothing. So, When it comes
I
down to
was
that,
under
I
an
learn from anyone.
instructor once. I was under an instructor once that said that you have to open a door before you can walk through the doorway, and
Yes, sir.
that's what we do is we open a door before we walk through.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's very genius, right? I mean, because you can't walk. I mean, you may be able to run through the door, knock it down, or whatever. That's very taxing. It helps if you're 6'5". Doesn't help if you're 5'8". You got to find a way, but the door has to be open. What is this saying? All men put their pants on the same way. You know, got to put your
Absolutely.
feet first. So it all starts somewhere, but we all wear different pants.
That's right. We
We all
all
wear
wear
different
different
pants, but we
pants.
put them on the same.
That's right. You want to tell people how they can find you and follow you?
Oh yes. So
If you want some sort of anonymity and don't want to do that, that is also okay.
well, so Facebook. I have more than one Facebook page. My Dojo page is Safe System School of Self Defense. Safe is SAEF. It's an acronym. Science and Evolution Fighting System. Richard White. Thank you. Richard White, my government name. Shake the Poet, SHAKE, because like I said, I do poetry. And Shake the Poet on Instagram. They can email me at safesystem@gmail.com. I would put my phone number out there, but then the weirdos would call too.
Yeah,
But
they
yeah,
definitely will. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you're asking for more than enough just by putting your email out there.
yes, yes, yes.
There's going to be somebody that's telling you you're doing it wrong. Always.
Absolutely. That is one of the reasons why I don't have a big social media footprint in my martial arts. Didn't
That's a,
one,
that's a,
go ahead.
that's what's kept me off of YouTube.
Yes,
After like 30 years of people like, you got a YouTube channel, you should
yes,
put all the techniques up on YouTube. And I was like, so I can have
no,
hate like
yes,
spewed at me.
yes. That is my number two reason why I have very little online is dealing with the trolls. All right. And not because I have a problem with the trolls, because it's more so their conversation is read by the masses and it turns people away from training.
For
It
sure.
makes more naysayers. My primary reason is that my focus is on self-defense and survival. That's what I'm focusing on, right? Not competition, not so forth and so on. And being in the city, I've been in the newspaper multiple times, been on the news. And I'm well known. I'm very well known here, right? If I'm showing techniques that I'm teaching online for the women who may come to my adult class because they're in domestic situation where her husband can just go to my YouTube and okay, so she's going to do this, she's going to do that, then it kind of makes it, null and void. But
For
so I'm trying
sure.
to figure out how to make my
That's beautifully forward thinking.
yeah, it's
We love it. I
it
love it.
we all have it's always your reason, your reason for it. I don't do this for money, though that would help. But I do it out of passion, love, or whatever, and purpose. And when it comes down to purpose, I kind of have to be careful about what I'm putting out there and why, because um, I don't want to show
Right.
like, oh yeah, this is what you need to do. Dot 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 dot. Social media is open to the people out here who are I literally just was having a conversation about like take massage therapy. You're in a room, guy goes, he undresses, so forth and so on, and you know some rooms, some places have the panic button in the room, and this was me, going getting a massage. Some places you go and they do have a panic button, they let the clients know if you feel uncomfortable, whatever, so forth and so on. So well, now I know what the panic button is. So if I'm getting ready to sexually assault you or whatever in this room, I'm not gonna let you get to where the button is. If you walk, if your wife, your daughter, your sister is a therapist, and she walks in the room behind the client, and I put a knife to her neck or pull a gun out and tell her and sexually there's and she's sexually assaulted in the room. I know this is graphic, but this is how I am in my class.
Yeah.
Well,
Do it.
and there's nothing in place. There's no systems in place for her to do anything. And this stuff happens and nobody talks about it enough. And it happens because well, she can't report it because now not only is this happened to her and she's scared and afraid and all this other stuff, but she's also her job is in jeopardy because the assailant can easily say, she didn't. It happens all the time. She offered, blah blah blah. She accepted money from me. She didn't like my tip, and now she's you know, and now there's an investigation not only on her, but the place she works. And she went to school, you
Right.
got this certification, and now nobody wants to hire you. Like this happens. This is what I mean by self
Mhm.
defense. It's a mental thing as well. These things aren't in place. So I can't like discuss that on my YouTube channel because though the owners of massage parlors and massage therapists may say, oh, wow, I need some training. Hey, we need to do this. Let's bring that guy in. Well, it also just told a whole bunch of creeps out there, what to do, how to get it
Right.
done.
Right.
Even though it's already
Well,
happening, it tells more people how to do it.
we had a serial rapist in Louisville, and after about, I don't know, 3 or 4 reports, it was coming out that he wasn't responsive to mace or pepper spray. Okay. And then after he was caught, it came out that he was eating salad with mace and pepper spray as salad dressing because he was using the consumption of it to get his body used to it. So he was building a tolerance so that he could continue to do his thing. And I just think like that sums up how important it is to understand. You know, I don't think you could prepare enough for an eye gouge. I don't think you could prepare
Yeah.
enough for me, smacking your throat, stuff like that. Bones breaking are bones breaking. And so,
Yeah.
like, I kind of tell my students those similar type stories of like, we are in the business of doing what we have to do to self preserve. So,
Yes. Yeah. That's
yeah, yeah. So I mean, people do whatever it takes to be pillars of good. People do whatever it takes to be nefarious, and so we have to combat those people doing whatever it takes for nefarious needs.
it's why I don't
So
understand why they're not more people in the arts. I couldn't imagine I couldn't imagine being a man and not being able to defend my family, protect my family. I cannot imagine sending my wife to the grocery store or someplace without me, or my daughter's off to college or anything like that with, knowing the crazies in this world, right?
100%,
And
100%.
not being able to defend themselves or protect themselves.
Mhm.
One of the things that I say is when I do those seminars, or even for religious folk, the armor of God hasn't protected anybody. Okay,
That's right.
it's your soul may be protected, but your life, it's not being protected in that way. If evil comes, you got to be at fight. You have to have an idea, a plan, or something. And that, I mean, I was close proximity of pepper spray in high school, breaking up a fight, and we were in a hallway, and I
Mhm.
did that. I don't know if it was old, the pepper spray was old or whatever, but that was it. Shook it off and nothing. But also been in the gas chamber, you know, that big difference. But yeah, everything
Right.
doesn't work for everybody. Some people play with stun guns, so they play with it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's not going to put
Yes.
everybody down. So and a
Or
lot of
some
people,
people are out of their mind on drugs and
yes,
can't feel
and
as
I
much
talked about
pain.
that. They're
So
impervious
that
to pain at the time, right? They're hawked up on whatever they're hawked up on. Even sometimes you can be hawked up on adrenaline,
that's
and
right.
they're gonna feel it later. We do that all the time. We're training. We're sparring real good. You go sit down, you got a knot on your shin, that, oh man, what happened?
What's that from?
You know? Yeah, you didn't feel it when it happened, so it didn't slow you down. So and those things people don't even know exist in human beings. They think that's all stuff on TV. But when you start training, if you're training hard enough, you start seeing it, you start feeling it, you become it. So you're like, oh man, so people can actually do it. If you have a open-minded person, stop thinking that you're a
Right, right.
badass. You know.
You're reminding me of that meme where it's like the small dot and it's like this is what you know, and then the bigger
Yeah.
around the dot and it's like this is what you know that you don't know, and then like the
Yes.
rest of the page is and
Yes.
this is everything that you haven't even thought about.
You don't even
These are
know
the
you
things
don't
that
know.
you
Yes.
you don't even know that you don't know these things.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. It is definitely that. It is definitely that. That's a staple in my understanding. It's like Okay, I know this, and this is nothing. Um, it's nothing, and it's not always the answer. So I ask a question to my students, to my peers. What two numbers together make 10? What is your answer?
They probably say 5 and 5.
5 and 5, and 5 is the only wrong
My
number.
initial answer, my initial is 6 and 4, probably.
Six and four.
Like what my mind just immediately says.
Yes. So most people say 5 and 5, and I usually say, no, that's the wrong answer, because I say, what two numbers? That was just two fives. That's the same number twice, right?
Yeah.
2 and 5 make 10 if you multiply them. 1 and 0 make 10 if you write them side by side. 7 and 3, 6 and 4, 190 make 10 if it's subtraction, right? There's an infinite number of ways to make 10, but the most common answer is the only wrong answer. You know nothing.
5.
You know nothing, right? We can use negative numbers, integers, there's a slew of ways to make 10. So what it is you think you know is not the answer. If you master algebra, algebra is your Shotokan, and you've been studying all your life. You got 40 years of Shotokan, right? That's your algebra. Well, if this is a trigonometry equation, your algebra is no good here. If it's geometry, your algebra is no good here. If it's basic arithmetic, your algebra is no good here. So your system, your style, your way, your method, if it's not what the situation calls for, it doesn't matter how good you are at that. You know nothing,
Right.
right? You can't,
Right.
you can't get me off you. Like, not no joke. Last month, a security team started coming to training. Supposed to come to me every other month. He wanted to get a couple hours for to supplement they're doing. And they made a joke. It's like, man, if coach, they call me coach, if coach over here come through, we gonna have to shoot him. Making a joke just for me showing them certain things. It's like, yeah, everything that
Right.
you're training for the security, your training prior to that. Some of them are ex-military, ex-law enforcement, and have some martial art training or whatever. They weren't prepared for any of the things that I was teaching them, and it was the first class. Okay, that means, like, thank you for applaud me as a teacher, but it's not about that. What it's about is there's somebody out there, a lot of somebody's out there that you're not prepared for, and we did nothing with a weapon.
Right.
We did nothing with a
Right.
weapon, and it was me at 5'8" by myself. It wasn't a whole bunch of. So again, you know nothing, and I have that mindset, and I understand that. I
It
understand
all
that.
comes back to that curve, doesn't it, brother?
Yes,
That curve got
yes,
in the way and you
yes,
tripped.
yes. Your clothing is so loose. The gi is so loose, right? I said I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up in North New Jersey. I like to wear Timberlands. Those boots are heavy, right? You don't kick the same unless you've
That's right.
practiced, right?
That is right.
Women that train, they can barely walk in their heels. They like wearing 6-inch heels and above, right? You can't even walk in those heels. And you got to run in them. You got to kick. You got to, everything is different. And if we haven't put ourselves in those situations, like if you don't put yourself in those situations, you're in the dojo, you need to have, like when we were talking about that training, and I said, just that physicality, we don't get into that real life. Sometimes I want you to dress the way you dress normally and show up to class.
Absolutely.
Right? Put your kids, put book bags on them, and have the assistant instructors, especially as well, have them spar with the book bags on, and have adults, even have the parents jump into the class if you can, if you have children, and have them grabbing the kids by the book bag to kidnap them. Because yeah, you can't you cannot make about the fear and all that, the shock, but you can make the movements and the habits second nature by doing it, right? Because most of the time we
Absolutely.
fail because we are in unfamiliar territory. That's why, like in the UFC, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu started kicking tail in the first place, because people weren't fighting on their back. If I put somebody on his back, unless they wrestle, if you put somebody on their back, usually you were in an advantageous position,
Right.
right?
Right.
You put somebody on the ground, usually they fell, you got up. If it was judo, you threw them, they got up. Or karate, you knocked them down, you got awarded your point, they got up. And hajime, you went back again. Well, Well, now you're on the ground trying to survive, and it doesn't matter if you're on the top, the bottom, the side, or whatever. And hopefully they're not behind you, right? It's because that
Absolutely.
territory is unfamiliar. That's all it is. Fighting blind, poking in the eye. Yeah, it hurts. It doesn't hurt as much as some of the hits you've taken, but you don't know what's coming, and without your eyes, it's unfamiliar territory, right? So
Absolutely.
anything you don't know is going to
Absolutely.
be unfamiliar.
Absolutely. Brother, I want to thank you for having this conversation with me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for
Thank you for
having me.
taking the time. Thank you for being a part of my martial journey and having this
Yes, sir.
conversation.
Yes, sir.
And maybe we can do it again sometime, or maybe I
Absolutely.
make it out to Texas and
Yes, sir.
we can
Yes,
have some
sir.
6'5" to
Yeah,
5'8"
yeah.
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right.
Uh, thank you. Thank everybody for listening, and keep kicking.
Peace and blessings.
Phenomenal podcast, phenomenal conversations. I cannot thank Richard White enough for taking a leap and trying to have a conversation with somebody that randomly had a Facebook post. It's wild. It is wild to me. I am so incredibly grateful for my martial arts journey. I'm so incredibly grateful for all of these people that I get to meet, people that I've known for so long, these conversations that I'm having, these thought provoking experiments, and these philosophical journeys that I am taking. If you would like to come on and tell your story, if you would like to be a part of this in some capacity, you can find me on Facebook and message me there, or you can email me at keepkickingpod@gmail.com. I love you all. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. In the same capacity that I thank each and every one of my interviewers, I want to thank you for also being a part of my martial journey because you are listening to these podcasts. I love you all. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.